Yes, people, welcome back to another Offside Trap video. And today I'm joined by Doc. Doc, how you doing?
Evening, afternoon. Hope you're all well. Hello, everyone in the chat. Hope everyone's well.
Um, Today, as you can see from the title and the thumbnail, I want to get straight into this one. The lack of talented English strikers we've got compared to now. I want to highlight beginning with Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane, yes, has been the main number nine for, I want to say, 5 years now, maybe even 8 years. He's been that main number nine. And then if you lose him, who have you got below him? You've got Solanke, not good enough. Wilson, not good enough. Watkins, not good enough. Rashford could play number nine, but he's not good enough. And Ketia, now I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. Um, it's just an awful place to be looking at the English striker depth as of current. So, Doc, what's your feelings on it?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I think we've always had this sort of problem position with England, haven't we? It's been the left back, it's been the left winger. Um, I'm starting to feel like we're at that point now where, especially with Kane's age, where the English striker is becoming that problem. I think it coincides with the fact that the big clubs, so to speak, aren't producing English strikers like they have in the past. If you talk about a Liverpool that have got an Owen and a Fowler at the same time, if you're talking about like Manchester United, that's okay that they might not have produced them, but they've had English players there. With regards to Andy Cole, Sheringham, you've had the Ian Wrights at Arsenal. You've got Shearer. Yeah, it's just worrying for me, just worrying, because the only saving grace that we've got is the formation that we've chose to play at the moment. Because if we ever wanted to go 4-4-2, I think we would really, really struggle, really struggle. So yeah, the saving grace is the midfield and the fact that we can score goals from midfield, because I think we're going to need to. If we ever lose Kane, I think that we're going to need to be dependent on this midfield, and that's the concern for me.
See, if you're looking at Bellingham for Real Madrid, for instance, he's been playing that sort of. He's not been a number 10, and he's not been a number. He's sort of been like a number 9.5 when it comes to position. He's not a striker, but he's not a cam. He's that in between player, and I think that if we get a new manager into England, I could definitely see a world in which Bellingham will be that false nine creator. Because if we, like we said, if we're looking amongst the talent of English strikers, there really isn't much. We can have Foden fit into that 10, or Palmer, or Bellingham, or so there's always that that aspect that we're going to have to look into when it comes to it. Because like you said, Kane's not getting any younger. He's chose to move to the Bundesliga, which is going to be definitely easier for him, and yet he somehow fluffed that. You can take the man out of Tottenham, but you can't take the Tottenham out of the man. But ultimately, yeah, I don't know. But do you think that they're going to try and play sort of like I was saying with the 9.5 sort of striker?
I think obviously with regards to Southgate, I don't think he's got that in his locker. I don't think Southgate's that guy. So I think potentially that if we went down a foreign route as a manager, that they might try, and we might turn out to be like Spain, a few years ago, where we don't actually play with a traditional striker. And it may well be that might not necessarily be a bad thing with the talent that we've got. And it may well be that they can all chip in with more goals without the dependency and reliancy of the one up top. So yeah. I'm not suggesting that will or won't happen, or whether that's a good or a bad thing. My point is I'm more concerned with the fact that there's not strikers out there that are screaming for a start, And for me, the quality of the strikers. I mean, we've always had this talk at England, haven't we, where players at the small clubs don't get the opportunity until they go to the big clubs. And the exception to the rule is our strikers this season. We've got a Brentford striker and a Bournemouth striker that are literally being classed as the second and third best option. And, name me another position where that's the case. I just think it's scary. It's concerning. It's very concerning. I mean, I dread to think if we get France in the final, what the France back four are going to be thinking when they're like, oh no, England have got Solanke up front.
Mate, Didier Deschamps is going to be laughing.
That's what I mean, and I'm a strong believer in, and that might be their downfall, because they could underestimate a Solanke that with the creative players that we've got. Solanke will always get goals. He will always get goals, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a striker that's got the full package that can bring, even if he's not scoring, he's bringing things to the table. Now with Watkins, he's the only one, in my opinion, that I can see working in that England setup, because if you watch what he does at Villa when he isn't scoring, he's pulling out wide and he's creating for the player that is obviously making the run into the position where he should be. And if he done that for England, I do feel like a Bellingham, a Foden would make that run. So Watkins for me is number 2 striker for England all day, every day. But that's where the buck stops. That is where the buck stops. And that is only on a technicality. He's getting in there because of what he offers, not in the striker role. But if you've got Watkins up top, pulling out wide left, and you've got Kane up top, pulling in back into the sweeper role that he seems to want to do recently.
There's no one left. There's no one left.
It's just,
If we take a trip down memory lane, right? With the English strikers, I'm going to list off some, and I just want you to tell me whether they get into the striker position. So I'm going to start off with Robbie Fowler. Would he get in ahead of Kane for this England team?
No.
Would he get in second?
Yes.
Ian Wright.
Not in front of Kane, but yes in second.
Wayne Rooney.
Well, Kane's overtaken Rooney's record, but again, if you're talking about Rooney or Kane, for me, a prime Rooney would be over a prime Kane all day, every day.
Shearer.
100%. Shearer would be number 1. Kane wouldn't even be starting it. If Shearer was fit tomorrow in his prime, Kane not only loses his starting spot, he loses his captaincy, he loses his England record, he loses everything. Shearer is that guy.
Sheringham.
Again with Sheringham, he wouldn't dislodge Kane because he's not that prolific striker up the top that Kane can be. But if you're talking about a Kane dropping in, Sheringham could give him a run for his money there.
Yeah. And then what was your Andy Cole?
Andy Cole again. Andy Cole is in this current England team. I think Andy Cole would get a lot more success than what he got before, because the way we play football, I mean, we're not that sort of team now, are we? Where we've got a David Beckham down the wing putting crosses in as such, like onto a Shearer's header or a Crouch header. We like to play football now, and I think with an Andy Cole, he is a goal scorer, so I think he would still get goals in that team. And I'd certainly rather see an Andy Cole than a Solanke.
Yeah, and then one more that I do want to say is Jermaine Defoe.
Again, Jermaine Defoe. I mean, I've got nothing but respect for the guy, apart from his attitude. With regards to a footballer, I think he's great, and I think he's a very good finisher. And I think that it's quite ironic with Defoe that, to me, he's wasted his potential, because imagine a Jermaine Defoe if he chose Arsenal over Tottenham.
Yeah, but it's always going to be like that with Tottenham, though, isn't it? It's always going to be like that with Tottenham. Imagine people's careers if they went to clubs that won stuff.
Well, yeah, but I just mean that not only would he have obviously won more than what he won at Tottenham, because that's not hard, but he would have also, his legacy would have been there. I think he would have scored a lot more goals in that Arsenal team. Could you imagine like a Defoe and an Henry up front together? Because I could.
Yeah, but it's difficult because you ain't going to replace someone like Dennis Bergkamp, are you?
Nah, no, agreed.
But
Agreed.
I think, especially Jermaine Defoe, I think he would be ideal in a partnership with Harry Kane.
Yeah.
I think go on.
The thing that the thing that I was touching on with Defoe is when he left Tottenham, he goes to Portsmouth, and then he goes back to Tottenham. Now, I'm not disregarding Portsmouth with regards to what they achieved and everything else, but for me, a Jermaine Defoe will always score you goals. So I'm surprised that he couldn't have stayed in the top 6, and done it there, as opposed to going to, the clubs that he went to later on in his career, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like the Sunderland, and then he went to
Yeah,
Rangers.
yeah. I just feel like that when you're a goal scorer, like Francis Jeffers, where he went to Arsenal, not in his prime, but he went to Arsenal like as the fox in the box. Well, to me, that's what Jermaine Defoe was. He was that predator, and for me, every club needs a predator. So I'm surprised. I'm surprised the big clubs didn't take him up on that offer, and I think it's probably something to do with the fact that Harry Redknapp was earning a nice bit of wedge out of the deals, to be honest. But
Yeah.
see, when you talk about Crouch, I talk about that differently. I'm not surprised that Crouch had to go down that route. But that's the difference between a Crouch and a Defoe. For me, it's night and day. So the fact that their career paths were similar, like Tottenham, Portsmouth, that's what I'm talking about with a Defoe,
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a tricky one. But the names I've listed off there, right? That's the level of quality that we've had throughout the years for England.
Yeah.
And like we've said now, who have we got? Harry Kane. Okay, that's great, but what happens when he retires?
Even a Darren Bent that you haven't mentioned, a prime Darren Bent is considerably better than a Solanke, a Tony, a Wilson. Where did Wilson come from? Bournemouth. He's gone to Newcastle. That's the difference, isn't it? These players would never, ever have made a name for themselves back in the day if they played for these clubs. And I'm not suggesting that's the right way. I'm just saying that's the fall off. The fall off now is that's the fall off where we are literally scraping the barrel now, where we've got no other option but to go to these clubs to get the best options in our position in our country. I mean, if you had Brentford's number one goalkeeper in goal for England, you'd think to yourself, hang on a minute, something's not right here.
We have got Everton though, and they've probably been worse than Brentford when we've got Pickford.
Yeah, and I do agree with that statement. And I do think that is the sort of same principle with regards to the striking option. But with Pickford, I'm not a big Pickford fan anyway, myself, just for the record. I'm not a big Pickford fan. I understand the sentiment, and I'm not going to disagree that he's probably the best option and he should be number one. But I would like to see us having a better goalkeeper than a Pickford, for argument's sake. So, I do agree with that sentiment. But then, in the same respects, it's slightly different. It's slightly different with a goalkeeper, isn't it? Because it's only one position, and there's only one of them. Whereas with strikers, if you're going to play two up top, you need 4 or 5 strikers. The number two goalkeeper realistically isn't going to get any minutes at a World Cup or Euros unless you get an injury. A number 2 striker, you're going to need to turn to him at some point to change something.
Yeah, I think especially with the striker position, it seems to be hard to come by. I think that ultimately it's a dying breed, if you will, and that's in the world of football. Yes, you've got this generational talent in Haaland. You've got Osimhen pulling up numbers. You've got Mbappe, but he's been playing more as a left winger. Benzema's at the end of his legs out in Saudi. Ronaldo, obviously, at the end of his legs in Saudi. You haven't really got them number 9s in world football. Let alone, obviously, I know we're discussing the English strikers, but if we're looking across the world, before we were looking at Raul, Fernando Torres. You've got Drogba. You've got Bergkamp. You've got.
It's
I
like
could
it's a
go on
dying
for
breed,
hours.
isn't it? It's like it's a dying breed. It's like with regards to these other positions where there's been like the changing of the guard. It's like the striker role is dying on us. Or that's where it feels like. It feels like you're never going to see like the prolific strikers anymore. Like, and if you do, there's going to be like you're going to count them on one hand. And maybe we were just spoiled over the years where there was so many of them. But one thing I can assure you, if there was a prime R9 right now on this planet, like playing football, he would be licking his lips, wouldn't he? Because he'd be looking like that and he'd be going, where is my competition? Who is keeping me honest?
Even if R9 would obviously going through his injuries, he would still be considerably clear of any other person on this planet.
Yeah.
And I think the same with Zlatan. I know he's definitely a controversial character in his ego and the way he handles himself, but he's been one of my favorite players to watch.
Yeah.
Growing up, he was just the black belt to the kung fu kicks. To everything
I just think like with regards to England themselves, we've just got to be careful because if you take Kane's goals away from England, hence the fact that he's England's all-time goal scorer, where are them goals going to come from? And that's my concern. That's my main concern. I don't see any of them strikers that you're talking about being able to take Kane out, put them in, and then being able to deliver remotely close to what Kane can do. And I think, we've been sport where not only have we had 2 that could do that, we've had 3 that can do that. We've had 4 that can do that. And like I said, thank God that we only want to try and play one up top at the moment in that position, because I think we would really, really struggle if we didn't.
Yeah. So, guys, let us know in the comments. Do you think the number 9 is dying in the position? Do you think that England are going to be screwed when it comes to strikers when Kane hangs up his boots? Probably in the next Euros after this. Realistically, he's going to be pushing mid to late 30s. So, yeah, let us know in the comments. Doc, thank you for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Guys, everyone in the chat, do you remember a few years ago where we had to there was cutouts in the newspaper when we were like praying for David Beckham's healing? Just pray that Harry Kane don't get injured anytime soon, because if he does, our hopes are finished.
We are knackered. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn notification bell so you are aware when we post next, and we will see you in the next video. Peace out.